I say, you guys are doing a great thing. It's such an uncomfortable topic to talk about, especially for a guy, young guys in their early 20s. And, I'm glad that, I could tune in and, listen to you guys.
Spencer Kobren's The Bald Truth.
Hey guys, welcome to the broadcast or the stream or whatever you want to call this. Joe Tillman, how are you, brother? Good to see you.
I'm good, thank you. I was almost sick. I had a little inflammation in my throat this morning. I thought, damn it, but I averted it. I'm fine.
All right. Well, you want to talk?
False alarm.
All right. We'll show our scars. I have been sick. I've been sick all week, but I'm still here.
And I'm still here. So what's the complaint?
I don't want to talk about it.
Come on. How's the fire situation near your place?
Well,
The
right
people in
now,
the chat mentioning it.
right now it's much better. But it was. I would put video up online, but I was going to put video up online on Instagram, and I got to tell you, I almost felt that there were a lot of people exploiting. It was kind of like me if I was like taking a shot of me running away from the Tower 2 of 9/11.
Yeah.
That would have gone viral if there was such a thing as that back then. But yeah, I mean, I was able to. It was very close, as you saw. I sent you a video.
Yeah, that was crazy.
So it was scary. But, living through 9/11 and living in a situation where there was no warning to get out, to me, this is kind of like, I'm in a position, I'm very lucky, right? I don't have to go to a job or things like that, and I can just do whatever the hell I want. So I always have a full tank of gas because I'm super paranoid. That's another reason I don't have an electric car living in California with this effed up grid and the mismanagement of this state. And I have a bug out bag and an earthquake bag. I just have to pick up my my friend, and I would just go to Vegas and get a room at the Wynn for a week. Whatever happens, happens. Everything else could be replaced. Take your credit card,
Kinda
your
like,
passport, my hair,
like Mel
my
Gibson.
hairspray.
Did you see that? He
No.
was on Rogan, and he's like, they're talking about the fire. He goes, yeah, I think my house is burning right now. My son sent me some video of our neighborhood, and it was on fire, so I don't know if I'll have a home when I go home. He was like completely chilled.
What are you going to do?
Exactly. Yeah.
Look,
That was
idiots
a
like
crazy
me
video, by the way.
choose to live in the most mismanaged state currently. Well, I mean, Washington State's pretty bad. In the United States,
Yeah.
an area in which, it's funny how, to me, it's funny how they talk about this being a natural disaster, when in fact this is one of the most unnatural disasters. Yeah, we've known about the Santa Ana winds for what, 1,000 years or however long?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah. But suddenly,
Yeah.
it's all new again.
right,
What's old is new again.
right. Until, I don't know, 25 years ago, they were essentially doing everything they could to prep for wildfires. And there are systematic ways to ensure that these wildfires don't get out of control. Also, and I don't want to talk politics, so I'm not going to, but just the reality is, also, there has been money in the till to put these ancient electric wires that are on these tiny, skinny poles under the ground. So that if a wind blows them over, it's not going to set everything on fire and you don't have to turn off the power. I mean, all this stuff is in place. We also have more water than, for some reason, the state claims that we have, or we could have.
We had record rainfall, this time last year? In snowfall?
Dude, they're not saving the water in the reservoirs for a specific reason. I don't even talk about it.
Yeah.
Listen, I love the environment, but I got to tell you, the human environment is pretty important. And just the amount of animals and the CO2 emissions from these fires just in the last 4 years have undone everything the state of California thinks that it did for climate change.
Right. The offsets have been offset.
By double, actually, from what I've read.
I'm sure.
You know, and it's unfortunate.
I'm sure.
And now it's really hit kind of the wealthier population of the state.
Well,
You know, you got Santa Monica,
it's
Pacific Palisades, Malibu.
Malibu's gone. Like
Yeah.
Jesus. Like, wow.
Well, Pacific Palisades
it-
is gone too. I mean, it's really
Did it
gone.
get
It's level.
to Did it get to Zuma Beach area of Malibu?
I don't think
you know?
so,
Okay.
but I can check my map. Anyway, whatever it is what it is. You know, it's horrible what's happened. It's a very scary situation. And no matter what certain people believe that this is just a natural disaster, it's not a natural disaster. Yes, fires happen.
No.
You know, but a lot of these fires are set now by, you know, sadly, people who are unhoused. Now there's plenty of people who are unhoused, but they're somehow finding shelter.
Wah, wah, wah.
Anyway, phone number is 888-659-3727. But I got to tell you, land's going to be cheap. Can't insure it, though.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's kind of yes and no, cheap and not cheap. Because the next time it's going to go up in flames.
I will say this, and guys, we'll take your calls in a second. You know, the one thing that I think back in retrospect, like with my, you know, listening to former, you know, family members or, you know, people I was involved in with, you know, in the past, and tell me where I should buy and what I should do and how I should conduct things as far as real estate and all this stuff. I always went with my gut. And I got to tell you that I made the right moves here in California. I was just like, you know, this is not a stable place to own a lot of properties. That's all I'm going to say. I never felt good about that. Anyway, phone number 888-659-3727. This is The Bald Truth. We're going to take your calls right now. I want to thank you guys for tuning into the live broadcast on Joe Tillman's YouTube channel, which is the Hair Transplant channel, youtube.com/Hair Transplant Mentor. If you're following me or listening to the show, because I just posted it on my private chat thing, whatever it's called, on Instagram, welcome. I will start doing some more lives on Instagram, but I really just haven't felt like it.
Nothing wrong with that.
But I'll start.
And by the way, to Rob Hellner in the chat, my friend, you're never first. It's always me. There's this little battle going on between Rob and DB. DB was actually first, but I'm first before all of y'all. So there, take that. You'll always be second, but you're always first in our hearts. Just had to say that.
And that's why I don't read the chat.
I like the little back and forth.
That's why I do not read the chat. Guys, let's take a phone call. Let's see who this is. Hey, you're on the air. What can we do for you? Hey, caller.
Hey guys, how's
Hello.
it going?
Who's this?
Hello?
Hi.
It's Tim from New Jersey.
Tim from New Jersey. What's happening,
Tim.
brother?
What's up, man?
You guys remember me?
You're TMI Tim?
Oh yeah. So
TMI
man,
Tim.
I feel like I'm about to derail the conversation. With talking about hair loss. You guys were talking about some stuff that's obviously a lot more important than that. But
Well, yes and no.
in any case,
Dude, hair loss changes lives, man. Hair loss destroys. It destroys. I mean, it affects every aspect of not only our lives, but it affects our infrastructure. Believe it or not, the way whether or not people can like focus on work, interpersonal lives. It affects family life. It's important, brother.
I'll put it like this.
true. That's true.
I bet that at least one guy, maybe five, as they're running out of their house, fearing for their lives, grabbed a hat.
I'll put it like this. Do you think Gavin Newsom would be the governor of California if it wasn't for his hair?
Exactly. And then $10 of hair gel.
Well, if you
he
only
uses
can
every
grab
day.
your hat, I mean, they probably grab their Propecia pills before they grab their hat. I don't know. I guess it depends who you are.
Dude, my
But,
bug out bag, I have like extra. I mean, it's all set up. I have Dermatch hairspray. You know, I got my finasteride. I got it all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a bug out bag.
How
I mean,
many,
I'm talking about.
months
I have.
of
Food,
finasteride
I
do you
have.
keep in there?
I put it with my food rations. That's how important it is to me.
Do you have a pill cutter? You have a pill cutter in there?
I don't need a pill cutter. I take the entire dose.
Oh, okay. All right.
Pill cutters are for pussies.
So what's going on, man?
You know,
Just bite it.
I guess I'll give like the audience like a summary of like what's happened with me so far. So basically, I started noticing some hair loss in like early 2024. I'm 27. I was 26 at the time. I'm 27 now. So obviously, I went to the doctor, and I got a finasteride prescription. But I started taking it, and I felt like I got some side effects in the first couple of weeks. So one of the main side effects I noticed was, like premature ejaculation or whatever. So I called into the show, and you guys had noted, that while you're not doctors, it could be due to anxiety or it could be a transient issue that would go away with continued usage of the drug. So obviously, this is last year I'm talking about. I kept taking it, and the premature ejaculation issue got better, but eventually I started having some erectile dysfunction as well. So that was probably around like week 3 or 4 that the erectile dysfunction was happening. So eventually I just decided to hop off because I was like, fuck this. But in any case, I've been growing out my hair kind of long and still kind of covering up the thinning using Dermatch. And I started getting a lot of compliments about my long hair. So I was like, fuck it. I'm going to give the medication one more try. So I started taking it again on December 9th. I've been on it a little over a month because I decided, hey, chances are, in a lot of cases, I know the side effects can go away if you keep taking it. So, this time, honestly, I did notice the premature ejaculation again towards the beginning. So I guess that is a transient side effect rather than anxiety related, at least in my opinion. And then there was like a week where I did have issues with like erections and stuff like that. Like it seemed like it took a little longer to get one, or it didn't really get as hard. But honestly, that seems like it's mostly back to normal.
That's great.
Yeah. So sexual side effects, I'm not really seeing. So I'm a little over a month in, but basically I wanted to get your guys' opinion about like possible mental side effects. So,
oh yeah,
like all the sexual, yeah. So basically, the sexual side effects have pretty much gone away from continuing to use it. But like sometimes I feel like maybe I just don't feel as good, or
like feels good,
I don't want
being
to use the word
down
depression,
or depressed.
Just a little bit. I'm not like
Dude, welcome
in
to the
bed
club.
all day, unable to do anything. I don't really. Yeah.
Welcome to life.
But a little bit. I don't feel quite like I don't know. I just, in my opinion, I don't feel quite as good. And maybe I have like a little tiny bit of brain fog. But obviously, I realize that these they could obviously be in my head, or they could be transient still. So basically, my plan was just to keep taking it and see what happens. But yeah, I just wanted to get your guys.
I'm gonna put it this way. Let me frame it this way. Again, I'm not a physician, but obviously I'm very experienced in this, and I've dealt with depression from a young age, really due to my hair loss. That's when things really started for me. And I will tell you that as far as adverse side effects, in my experience, and just based on all of the anecdotal discussions that I've had over the years with people, being on finasteride for a long period of time, if you fight through the initial transient side effects, which is in most cases, they are transient. Your level of depression for the long run will be much less than if you are obsessed about your hair loss. And not everybody is, but if it's something that's going to make you unhappy as it continues to progress, the fear and anxiety of the continued progression of hair loss for many guys really destroys them, really takes them out of the game. Now, I'm not saying that it should, but, and I wish that wasn't the case for most people, but we deal with that psychology. We deal with that reality. Now, it's great when people can come to terms with it and just shave their heads and move on. That's probably the healthiest way to take care of this. But most of us aren't equipped to do that. So what I can say, based on my experience and the experience of probably thousands or maybe tens of thousands, if I'm really thinking about it after all these shows that we've done for the last 30 years, in the end, most people feel much better about their lives and their decisions if they've stayed on Propecia and have done well and have kind of fought through the initial side effects. So your transient depression right now, what you're thinking about is depression or brain fog. It may or may not stick around. It probably won't. I mean, the odds are it won't. But in the end, if you look, 5 years down the line and you still have the hair that you have right now, you're probably going to be less depressed, in my view, than if you just let it go and you're not equipped to let it go.
Well, I guess we're on the same page then.
Really felt I was going to get a better response from that. That was very, really insightful, Spence.
Sorry, what
Spence,
type of... What
I
were you
didn't really think
expecting
of it
me
like
to
that.
say?
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, his brain fog kicked in. He's like, what were you saying?
Huh? Were you saying something?
Sorry, I was too depressed to listen to you.
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah,
no.
that would be better.
It's like a 2 minute explanation and just my insights and it's just like well, okay.
I agree with you.
Okay, maybe I would have been a little bit more enthusiastic, if I wasn't off an asteroid. No, I'm just kidding.
Actually,
but in any case,
that's a good point.
But I appreciate that.
But I'm not saying that you're not really feeling something right now. I mean, you have to understand that anything you put in your body is going to change your brain chemistry to some degree. I can tell you this, that if I go out right now and I have a tres leche, piece of tres leche cake over here at the Mexican restaurant after a full meal, not only am I going to be bloated, I'm just going to be zoned out, brother. You talk about brain fog.
Oh, yeah.
So sugar does that to me.
Yeah.
So I mean, the reality is anything that you put in your body is going to change could possibly change your brain chemistry, at least, initially until your body gets used to it.
The thing about this medication, so I didn't mention this before, but I did see a few doctors about it.
Joe's frozen, by the way. Your camera's frozen. That's it. Hold on for a second. Joe, that's a really good angle. And so I'm just going to keep you frozen like that.
Yeah, I need to call back in. Right.
All right, now I got to put the whole camera on me and make sure I don't have anything incriminating on my desk.
I'm back.
I don't see you.
No, hang on.
Caller, go ahead. Joe he's always running the show.
Go ahead, you're saying?
Yeah.
All right.
See?
Yeah, basically what I was going to say is, I saw a few doctors about hair loss last year, when I was trying to figure out what was going on. And most of them had said that,
you're balding.
Most people don't get side effects. Yeah.
You're losing your hair.
No, one of them actually tried to say that I looked good. One of them, actually, funny story, I don't know if you guys have ever heard about the Columbia University Hospital or the Columbia University Department of Dermatology in Manhattan.
Yes, of course. Angela Christiana.
You have? Oh, okay. Well, I haven't heard of her, but in any case, their dermatology department has this one lady that is they consider their expert in hair loss.
Yeah.
So I made an appointment with. I think I saw her in like September or something. I had been losing my hair for a couple months already, and I had already tested out finasteride but stopped taking it. So I went in and I saw this supposed hair loss expert, and she looked at my hair for like 2 seconds, and she was like, "Oh, you have plenty of hair."
Yeah.
And I was like, "All right, like what the fuck?" Like she didn't even look at the back of my head.
Yeah. Let me tell you about these experts who are connected to these universities who get all of the podium time, and they end up getting published and put on, you know, the boards of different journals and all this stuff. Half of it is complete bullshit. It's all politics. I have met maybe 2 of these, you know, this group of so-called experts from either, you know, Columbia, NYU, you know, different parts of the world, who are all considered the expert in hair loss and, you know, diseases of the hair. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm still here. Yeah.
And they have a waiting list of like 6 months to get in, or a year.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
they all have the same tools in their arsenal, and some of them really don't even know what the F is going on. But this was their field of study, and everyone refers to them. It's actually comical to me, to be honest. There's a couple of people like this that I know. There's somebody out here in I'm not going to say where, but you know, in relatively, you know, within, you know, let's say within 100 miles of where I am. And this person, there's an over a year waiting list. I was able to get somebody in to see this person, and it's just a whole bunch of happy horseshit, man. It really is. There are very few true experts who understand how to treat and how to also who are emotionally equipped to really help people dealing with different types of hair loss. And you usually aren't going to find them in those scenarios.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Sorry, was I supposed to give a more detailed reaction there?
No, it's okay. I don't. Are you on the spectrum, brother? And that's cool if you are, because I love spectrum people.
No, I'm not.
great.
I'm
Okay.
not. Or at least, you know, I might be undiagnosed or something. Who knows?
It's
But
possible.
In any case, yeah, possible.
But anyway, so your experience was not atypical. That's all I'm trying to say.
Yeah, but I want to bash on this lady some more, if you guys don't mind.
Oh, I don't mind.
Basically, so she said
Sure.
she said some ridiculous things. So first off, she said that I might just have a mature hairline, and that there's a good chance that my hair loss isn't even going to progress. So obviously
Eureka.
that's bullshit, right?
And now this is from
yeah,
just like
so-
a cursory look at your scalp without using a dermatoscope.
Well, no, sorry. Yeah, like she took like a comb or something, and kind of looked at my hair a bit.
Was she using
You
any
know,
type of
sure it was a
magnification?
No, nothing like that.
Yeah, so there's no way. Basically, your barber
so-
could do the same thing.
Yeah. So basically, I told her that I had taken finasteride and gotten side effects, and that she told me that she didn't even really recommend finasteride if you're in your late 20s or later, because she said that your DHT level would have already peaked before then. So I was like, oh my God, this lady does not know what the
How
fuck
old
she's
is
talking
this
about.
woman? She's got to be young.
Well, she's a dermatologist, so I mean, I would guess that she's in her early 30s.
Yeah.
I mean, she obviously has really nice skin. So who knows? But yeah. So
I
she was saying
didn't
some
ask for an
ridiculous-
assessment of her appearance. I'm just kidding. Look,
I'm sure you wanted to know, though.
yeah, there's a lot. I mean, this is what I'm noticing also in the world of dermatology. The younger dermatologists, not only are they even less informed when it comes to hair loss, even the so-called experts, they're not even properly diagnosing skin cancer as well as they used to. It's just the whole thing. It's they all end up, and it's funny that she's working in this space. But as soon as she gets into private practice, I'm telling you, she's going to be doing injectables, anesthetics, like all the rest of these young germs. Anyway, that is an idiotic comment to make.
Yeah. So at that point, like, I knew that I was wasting my time there. And then she said something even dumber. She basically said that I should start wearing a heat cap or something that would heat up my head to hopefully help grow my hair back.
Dude,
and at that point,
you
I
were
was
being
like,
punked, brother.
Pretty much.
That wasn't even a doctor.
Believed-
This person just put on a lab coat, and walked in and said, "I'm going to fuck with this guy."
Or is it at least say a fucking laser cap or something? You know what I'm saying? Like, say something that's at least remotely realistic. But no. So at that point, I was like, well, that was a waste of fucking time. But in any case,
I'm not big on Yelp,
point being,
but I got to tell you, that seems like the place for this situation.
I mean, I don't know. Like, I mean, I guess I could tear her a new asshole online.
No, I'm just
but
kidding.
like-
I think that's a really fucked up thing to do, to be honest. I mean, unless someone kills somebody, whatever. You don't need to destroy somebody's reputation online. I'm just fucking around. But
Yeah, no.
I do think that it's unfortunate. And that's why I stupidly continue to do what I do, because I want to at least give people a fighting chance, because this is what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
First of all the TikTok docs, it's frightening. It is absolutely frightening what goes on.
Tim, you can go ahead and email me the name of the doctor. I'm starting a new series on the main event called The Namer of Names. I'll go ahead and eviscerate her. I'm kidding.
Okay.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
No, I'll email you the
Maybe
name
not.
of the doctor, though. If you really want to know. I won't say it on the show, though. But in any
I would
case,
like to know, actually, just so I can check out what she's saying online, if anything.
I'll send you an email later.
Okay.
But my
All right,
overall
sounds
point
good.
was that like, let's say I keep going with taking this medication, and I'm like, all right, the minor depression and minor brain fog go away, and I'm like able to keep taking it in the long term. Obviously, I'm going to be fucking pissed that I waited so long.
Well, whose problem is
what I mean?
that? That sounds like a me problem, or a you problem, I should say.
I guess, but like,
Well, here's the thing: you may
point
be
is,
able to
the doctor-
regain some hair that you've lost during that time you stopped, and as long as you're, everyone's texting me now. I'm doing a show, people. As long as you are not having adverse side effects, I'm almost positive. I am not a doctor, and I don't have a crystal ball either. I don't read tarot cards. Is that what they're called? Tarot cards?
Yes.
It's pretty sure you're going to get over these adverse effects, this slight brain fog, or, if you feel depressed, or, maybe not. I mean, what do I tell people? Put that on my tombstone? But, you just, I have no idea what's going to happen in your future, but it sounds like you're going in the right direction. And I think if you just have a positive outlook about it and don't obsess about it, which is difficult, I understand that, because I have OCD. I think you may forget about these. These side effects may not exist in a relatively short period of time. And what's the point of being pissed about anything? Right now, you're doing the best you can to save what you have. You have enough hair to dummy it up and make it look good. You're pretty lucky.
Yeah. Yep.
Yep.
I mean, it's just kind of crazy sometimes when people are like, I mean, I'm sure you too, Spencer, like, get the compliments, like, oh, your hair looks good or whatever. I just kind of feel like a fraud sometimes, because like,
well, I let them know I let them know
hair.
that this is a sham. First thing, I don't want anyone to think otherwise, especially if it's a woman. Just like, look, I got a Trump the early years comb over, I paint the back, I got a ton of hairspray, but thank you. And then they start talking to me about what they're insecure about, like Adrian said the other day. And That's it. I'm in like Flynn. So yeah, there's no reason to feel like a fraud. The people you're speaking to, if you're talking about women complimenting you, they're walking around in a literal disguise when they leave the house. That's just reality.
Yeah. I mean, the women my age aren't really caked in quite as much makeup as probably the girls that you're talking about. But they're still
He almost said girls your age.
Wait a second. What is that? How old are you?
27.
I'm 27. Yeah.
How old do you think the women I date are?
Typically,
Anyway, women your age.
Are you going to tell me?
women your age are caked in makeup. I mean, it's like they're wearing. If you go to the Peninsula Hotel at the bar, any place, any 27, 29, 30-year-old woman, it's unbelievable. You get them out in the daylight, it's what the fuck? So I happen to be very lucky that for the majority of my adult life, I had the co-author of my life wore nothing on her skin. Just a little stuff on her eyes when she went out, and that was, maybe some like lip gloss. So I'm spoiled. Now I go out, if like I have a night out, and I look at if I'm wearing a white shirt, it's like caked in like goop. And that's just from a handshake. Anyway.
Yeah.
So listen, but what I'm saying is, so what do you feel like? What do you mean you feel like a fraud? Just because you put a little makeup on your head?
Well, I don't know. It just, I'm kind of worried, like, it could come off, like, I'm going to have to obviously explain it if there's any white pillowcases that arise. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and?
Well,
you got to get over it. You got to get over it, dude. You got to get to a point where, you're making yourself feel better in life. You're able to walk out of your home feeling as confident as you can. Everyone should have that right. And I can tell you this, every woman takes advantage of that right. So why shouldn't you? And if you meet a woman who has an issue with that, you got to understand, and what these women don't understand is every guy with a full head of hair they think they're going to hook up with right now and possibly marry will most likely be bald. You are marrying, all of you women, if you're listening, every guy out there is a dead man walking when it comes to hair loss. So I think it's better for women to kind of like get involved with somebody who's already dealing with it and maybe has it in check than thinking they have a completely full head of hair with no issues, because they're in for a big surprise once they sign on that dotted line.
What happened with people saying, starting to compliment you on your long hair? Like, what's wrong with that?
Well, I don't know. Like, at first I was just shocked by it because, I technically have, the fewest amount of hair follicles I've ever had. But maybe the most amount of hair if you just look at it like that, in terms of the length. So I was honestly just shocked.
It has to be the fullness as well. It's not like you're a Norwood 7 with 5 hairs that are 4 feet long. That's more hair than you've had in 5 years,
right.
But you're still bald as hell.
Yeah, basically,
in your case, they're saying your hair looks good really long. That's a euphemism for your hair looks good. Not just long.
Yeah.
It looks good. So maybe take that for a little bit more than just face value. Understand what that really means. Maybe your hair loss isn't what you think it is. You ever think of that?
Well, I guess. But I think without the Durmatch in there, people honestly would be surprised to see the difference.
Yeah.
You should have seen Tillman's face when I got on camera with him. We were just fucking around doing something, and I wasn't wearing any Durmatch, and I just woke up. He was mortified.
I almost left. If I wasn't so hungover, I would have left. There was a Joe-shaped hole in the wall. Anyway.
That's funny.
Yeah, sounds like it was.
Well,
that's funny. This guy's reaction time makes
Sorry.
it seem like he hung up.
Yeah.
It's like,
No, I'm just letting it happen.
Well, to be fair, I am driving. I just want to point that out. So, I'm multitasking. I just want to make an excuse. Now, it might still happen. It might still happen if I wasn't, but I'm at least going to use an excuse.
well, it's also it sounds like you're on Bluetooth as well. Is that right?
Yeah, it's like CarPlay or whatever. It's like coming through the
Okay.
the speakers on the car.
Got it.
All right, man. Let's speed this shit
All
up.
right.
Come on. Let's go. We got a show here.
Chop. Chop there.
All right. Well, thanks, guys. I'll make sure to call back to report on whether or not I'm still depressed later.
Yeah. Listen, you don't really sound totally depressed, first of all, and I think that you were a little bit more. What's the word I'm looking for, Joe? I'm asking the wrong person. I'm not going to say despondent, but you sounded different when you were dealing with the premature ejaculation and all the other stuff, and then you had to stop finasteride. You sound a lot more hopeful now. So just based on the conversation, whatever you're feeling, you sound a hell of a lot better.
I'd say you sound more together than you did then.
But that's not saying much, really.
Interesting.
Like when you called last time, like
Fuck you guys.
every other sentence, your voice was cracking like a 12-year-old. I don't know, guys. I'm not feeling so good. And now you're sounding much more confident. You're sounding much more together. It's like, since I grew my hair out, but people are saying my hair looks good. And it's like kind of shocking. Like that, you sound like a normal guy now. Before you're like, I don't know what to do. I'm really despondent and I don't like premature. And it's like, it's night and day difference, man.
But I do want to make this clear that as far as the feeling like a fraud, I've heard women say this who are wearing hair. I watched the lives for WHLP Network, Women's Hair Loss Project, and these women are terrified to live their lives, and wearing hair for women in general, especially those who don't have hair loss, it's kind of like a rite of passage, especially here in Los Angeles. Everyone's wearing hair extensions, but there are guys. Thanks for the reaction. There are guys out there who are going online. They're wearing hair, young guys, and they're letting it. They're open about it, and they're like, you could see when they get it put on, whatever it is. Some of them start to tear up because they see themselves what they used to be, and some guys lose their hair so quickly at such a young age. I mean, it's life altering, So being able to look at yourself and walk out of the house and feel more confident, that should be a right. That shouldn't be something that you should feel judged about. And if you are judged about it, and I know this is easy to say, then you're not dealing with the right women. And there are going to be women who are going to judge you. Trust me. I've always been able to walk it back with these women because I always point out their latex mask that they're wearing, or their lipstick, or the tarantulas they have glued to their eyes, whatever.
War paint.
Yeah. And then they kind of stop and think, and they're like, okay. Because this is all I got. Like, I'm on this camera. I don't have anything on my face. Do you think there's a woman on social media that A, doesn't have makeup on, and B, doesn't have a filter? Except for WHLP. I've actually seen her with no makeup, no hair, no filter. She never has a filter, and she still looks good. But that's unusual. That's unusual. So don't let the thought and the fear of what others are going to think rule your life, brother. Life is tough enough. Before you know it, you're going to be dead or you're going to be old. Look at Joe. Look what's happened to Joe.
I know. It's not pretty.
Joe looks good, man.
Of course he does. I like to give him shit.
He likes to see if I'm listening.
Yeah, that's the usual.
That was for me, not for you.
I got 5 years on Joe. Come on. I mean, those are important years, man. Those are like wall hitting years. Joe doesn't even realize that yet.
What years?
Yeah. All right, brother. Listen, good luck. Try not to think about it if you can. Just understand the reality, the fact that you're doing well, that there's a good chance that in 10 years, even if there's no breakthroughs, you could have the same hair that you have right now. Other guys don't have that opportunity because they won't get on the drug or they've had adverse side effects. See ya.
Okay. Thanks for your time, guys.
All right. Take care.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Take care, buddy. Bye.
We got to work on his reaction time. Someone needs to sit him down. He has a great laugh. And I love the story, the premature ejaculation story. The timing of that was incredible when he said, I have it on Instagram, when he said that he went to, this may be a little bit of too much information, but, I went to masturbate and this happened. It was great for my Instagram. So he has a funny way of sometimes, he makes me laugh sometimes the way he expresses himself. He's funny. It's good timing when it comes to that. But Jesus, to get a reaction out of this guy. It's not as bad as you.
Well,
as my sidekick.
Few things are.
But all right, guys, we'll take your calls. 888-659-3727. Let's take this call. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Kyle. Can you hear me?
Kyle, what's happening? Where are you calling from?
Hello, Kyle.
From Portland.
Portland. God bless you.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
I just wanted to call for that guy who just called in. I kind of had the same problems, I thought, but I don't think it was from the medication. I think it's from lifestyle choices, and I think a lot of people, especially in America, we eat the wrong diet. And I feel like if he stayed on the meds and just dialed in on his nutrition, game changer.
It's interesting that you said that, and thank you. How old are you, first of all?
I am 38.
Okay, and how long have you been using finasteride?
About 8 years, I'd say, yeah.
All right, so tell me how you're doing on the drug overall.
Well, so my sequence of doing things was kind of weird. So I actually did two FUT surgeries really early on, and then I was on finasteride for a while, and I did those in my 20s. So then I moved, blah blah. So I was off it, and then I noticed it more loss. So I got back on it, and I just was scared shitless of losing it anymore. So I've been on it for about, like I said, 8 years, and it's done a great job of hanging on to what I have.
That's great.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And how's the transplant holding up?
The transplant held up well. It's still hard to say. Like, I have a full head of hair essentially, but it's definitely, I have some thinning in the crown, and it's just kind of, when I shave it down short, it's really bad. And then, but when I grow it out, it kind of appears thicker, and I do use some Topic at times, so it's manageable, so to speak.
Dude, my hair's like 4.5 inches long or maybe longer on top, just the whole thing. So I get it. But so let me ask you this: who did you transplant?
Yeah, he's retired now, but it was Dr. Gortz in Seattle.
Interesting. Okay, so you felt
yeah, Dr. Gertz. Yeah.
So you felt like you had a good procedure with him, 2 procedures.
Yeah. I mean, nothing too much to complain about.
Good. I'm glad.
Yeah.
Good. All right. Well, listen, I don't. And to get back to your point about lifestyle and medication, it's funny. We live in a world where that is rarely discussed. Physicians prescribe medication, and they don't discuss the possible interactions with nutrition and these medications.
Right.
And, we are kind of holistic beings, right? So everything that we put into our body interacts with what we're putting into our body. I know that if I am out getting fucked up, which I don't do anymore, but just getting loaded and then eating like pizza and all kinds of shit. I mean, there are times if you go back online where when I'm drinking and I'm like I'm like 210 pounds. And then, you can see when I'm taking care of myself. And
100%.
But every aspect of your body changes just from what you're putting into your body, including the way you react to medication.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So like what I would tell that caller to do is before you blame it on the medication, just go like perfect nutrition for like 1 month, right? Hydration and see if you still have those problems.
Yeah, and it depends on what perfect nutrition is for that person. You know, I mean, everyone has there's a lot of ideologues out there when it comes to diet. I'm a fan, at being a person of advanced years, of a high protein, relatively low or lower carbohydrate diet. I'm pretty low most of the time. I like to carb up a little bit. Depends. If I'm going to be walking around with my shirt off, I will I'll like have a loaf of bread the night before, and I'll just be like boom, But otherwise, I really try not to have a lot of carbs, and I feel sharper. I'm pretty sure the medications are, doing what they're supposed to do. And everything's just much better. My skin is better. My thoughts are better. My OCD is better. There's just there's no doubt.
I agree. Kind of almost like a paleo keto hybrid almost way. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've been ordering from a regenerative farm that everyone's talking about now. And I'm not saying I'm some sort of thought leader, but I initially started to do it because it was cheaper. I was able to order a lot of steaks and a lot of meat and keep it in my freezer. And it just happened to be grass-fed, grass-finished 22 years ago when no one was really doing that. So I've been ordering from the same place, and I just have a freezer full of meat. And I'm not saying I've stayed on that diet this whole time. Like I said, you see me, I go up and down. I mean, the last 5 years or so, I've been pretty consistent. But I stick to that. So it's not like I'm going keto or I'm going paleo. I eat probably about at least a pound of meat a day.
Yeah, that's literally the same thing what I do. It's about a pound of meat a day, some eggs, a little bit of fruit for carbs, and that works tremendously for me. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's it. And then, but people, you can't really. When I wrote the original The Bald Truth, I wrote about a diet. At the time, it was the Zone Diet by Barry Sears, which was actually probably the most similar to some of the diets that we're talking about now. It's kind of like a 40-30-30 diet, 40% protein, 30% carbohydrates, low glycemic index carbs, and 30% fat.
Yeah.
And I was lucky enough, at the time he was huge, and I was lucky enough to have him write 2 pages in my book about the diet. And I believed when I started to get on a more restrictive diet like that, when I was taking these medications, even before I started taking finasteride, I noticed a change in my hair just from diet. And at the time, I was using saw palmetto. But
I noticed a change in my diet when I 10 years ago when I just cut out all carbs, all sugars, and was strictly protein and strictly green vegetables. The first 2 weeks was hell. I felt like I'd lost maybe, 3/4 of my brain tissue. I was almost slurring my speech. I was really having to think hard to get a sentence out.
So not much has
2 weeks
changed.
later, no, not at all. My mental acuity just exploded. My energy exploded. Sleeping like a baby, crying all night, shitting my pants, but sleeping like a baby, and my hair after about 6 months of this seemed like it was fuller than it had been in a really long time, and I kept that up for a very long time. I'm still more or less on that type of diet, except for when my wife insists on having some sort of carb dish. But it really does make a difference. And I even experimented. I've been experimenting. I've been combining that with. I'm not as hardcore as I used to be, but I combine that with intermittent fasting, where I have one meal a day, one healthy meal a day. I might have like 1 or 2 soft-boiled eggs for breakfast, and I'll have a really healthy lunch, and that's it. No dinner, no nothing till the next morning. And I even did a 3-day fast last week for the first time. No food
3 days.
at all.
Wow, that's impressive. Yeah.
For a full 72 hours. And
wow.
Yeah, I think that type of, when you're doing diet restriction or intake restriction, I think that's a huge part of hair health in general. Like, I mean, overall health, but I've seen nothing but good things for my own hair.
But I think in your case, Joe, I think it was more of an existential threat when you turned 55. You're just like, I got to do something. I need to somehow.
Oh, that came with.
Yeah.
Well, there was that, and then buying a Porsche.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well, that was more. That was more of a midlife thing. But
yeah.
But no, I mean, I remember writing about diet and hair loss, and even what's now everyone's selling Nutrafol, right? Which is kind of like a
the $80 vitamin or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm telling you, people, you can get quality products for half the price. But I was a big believer in saw palmetto, pygeum, africanium, and stinging nettle. Standardized extracts, really, you really have to know where they're sourced. And I wrote about them in the original The Bald Truth. And every doctor, the one doctor that was going to do the forward for my book, backed out. He didn't want his name on the book because of this nutritional chapter and this chapter on nutritional supplements or herbal supplementation.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, go F yourself. I got somebody else. And now they're all selling it in their practices.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now everyone's starting to talk about diet and hair.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, what's your guys' thought on the, so obviously I take the finasteride and then I use minoxidil. Do you guys see, what's that product or company, Hims? Do you see they have a 2-in-1? Do you guys think that's just as good as it? I kind of like the idea of just having get it every month, a little chew, and you're getting your...
Yeah, everyone likes that idea, and that's why they're able to sell it to people like you who like that idea of convenience. Mm-hmm. But I got to tell you that no one has any idea where it's being compounded, how it's being compounded, the exact dosage that you're getting in those troches or in those chewables. Why would you want a chewable, first of all? I mean, yeah, it seems fun, but there's all kinds of, what type of additives and shit are in those chewables to make them.
How are they even able, as a publicly traded company, how are they even able to sell finasteride if it's not enclosed, how it's made and all that?
That's the beauty of the FDA and the fact that they're really, there's some very strong lobbyists when it comes to certain things in this world. I mean, it doesn't come down to patient or human safety. It comes down to business. And look, I'm a fan. Everyone is like anti-big pharma. Big pharma changed my life, and it saves the lives of countless people. Unfortunately, it's government that has allowed these companies to do what they do. And if these companies are allowed to do certain things, they're going to do it because they have to make their shareholders happy. Now, as far as Hims is concerned, look, they're able to say that they're selling FDA-approved hair loss ingredients or hair loss drugs. But once these things are compounded, there's no FDA regulation. Mm-hmm. Now, the FDA may regulate to some degree the compounding pharmacies they're compounded in, but they can concoct. I mean, Hims has like a 4-in-1 product, I think, and I could correct me if I'm wrong. So I may not be fully aware of this. I may be wrong about this, but I think it's like something that will prevent premature ejaculation, keep you hard, grow your hair, and I think help you speak Spanish. I'm not sure.
Is it that or do your taxes? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that's what I want.
Look, as a critical thinker and as someone who's been in this industry for a very long time and as someone who doesn't love the idea of having to take medication for his entire life, I think you want to mitigate every possible risk. So if you want to add oral minoxidil and you're doing well on finasteride right now, continue to take the same finasteride. This is my opinion. I'm not a doctor. Continue to take the same finasteride that you're taking. Don't deviate from that brand or generic, whatever you're using, because you're doing well on it. And if you want to add oral minoxidil, then add that separately, because at least you're not screwing with the drug that's currently working for you.
That probably makes more sense. Just swap the liquid minoxidil for the oral and just take 2 instead of 1. Whatever. Yeah.
I mean, in a million years, I would never take these mixed up compounded medications. And I'm sorry, Hims. It's very possible they're going to come to me soon and say, look, we want to be an American Hair Loss Association trusted brand, and we want to, and we're willing to give you full transparency. And yeah, okay. If you give us full transparency and every consumer knows exactly how it's being compounded and made, yeah, maybe we'll let you on board. Maybe that'll be good. I'll take the check.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's going to happen. Because I have had conversations with, let's just say, companies. And there's only been one company that's come to the table so far. And it's a startup. And they're the only ones that have guaranteed that they are willing to provide full transparency not only to the American Hair Loss Association, but to the consumer. Now we'll see if that happens.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And then one other thing too. I know you're kind of not for it, against it, for the whole S&P talk, right? I was thinking about doing. I cut my hair really short once, like really short, almost buzzed it down, or did buzz it down, like a 1 guard all over. And I did like the look of it, and it was kind of freeing, not using any topic and whatnot. But it's just that massive FUT scar in the back. What's your thoughts on just doing from a reputable? There's a lady in Seattle that seems to be like worldwide known for it. Her name's the company's Seattle S&P, and just doing just to kind of camouflage the scar in a little bit. I know that they don't completely remove it, but what's your thought on doing that just for the FUT scar, and not doing like an edged up barbershop?
Yeah, I mean that's to me that's where, and Joe could respond to this as well, obviously, but I'll respond first.
Yeah.
I like to keep Joe involved because otherwise he's just like looking at his computer screen. That's it's all over.
We don't want that. Yeah.
But
trading stocks.
Yeah, I think that is the value, the real value of SMP or trichopigmentation is for those who understand that creating an edged up hairline, is
especially on a white male,
it's unbelievable. It really is. I don't think these kids understand what they're getting involved in. I had some angry SMP guys write me when I posted that on Instagram.
Yeah, and I'm not.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you have your phone on you, but if you went and looked on her her Instagram reel page, she really does like 95% of her work is on white males, and she really does what she's known for is doing like that very subtle, almost like you can't even really tell there was any work done, but you can kind of frames a little bit.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing: if you are comfortable, you look good with buzzed hair, and you just want to hide your or try to camouflage your scars, it could work out very well for a while. Now, the thing is, ink. Well, not only does it fade, but ink can react differently in scar tissue depending on the person. She needs to be very experienced with that. You may want to get a test area done first with her, to see how it works out. You can do that while your hair is long.
Right.
And
well, I think they have. I think they have to buzz it down to do this. Can't really do it when it's grown out, but
if she can definitely separate. Can you see your scar when you separate your hair?
I try to. My barber, it's funny. He does I do like a skin fade on the sides, and then I do a little bit longer as I go up. So kind of, but not too much.
Right, but I'm saying if she dug in there and she wet your head.
Yeah, I think so.
And she wanted to put 50 dots in your head to see how your skin took. She can do that.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I get what you're saying. Yeah. And then my take on it was, too, is if for some reason the skin didn't take it up. Let's say I went with it. I think for the scar, it's like $1,000, whatever. But let's say I went with it, and it turned out not camouflaged that great. well, whatever. I'm out $1,000 and just grow my hair back out, right? It's not like
yeah. In your particular situation, it's definitely worth a try, especially if you like yourself with a buzzed haircut. Joe, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are S&P into scar tissue is usually a bad idea as a first line of defense. Okay, and here's why. I'm not against test runs and stuff, but if you're not going to shave your head for the test, then the idea of having to lift your hair, do a test on the area, and then wait to see how it turns out. What if it stays just fine, and you decide to move forward with it, and then when you shave the area down, which you just said that she'll have to do for the full procedure, the test doesn't look very good because it's just a test, right? Like
Well,
S&P.
Yeah, I mean,
I have a lot of
that doesn't even
experience
make
with
it.
S&P.
I don't mean to contradict you, but how does that even make any sense? What happens if he shaves his head and they
Don't
do a
you
test?
ever contradict me.
And they
What's
shave.
that?
What happens if you shave? Just decides to go for it, and the whole thing is a test.
I don't understand. What if he decides to go for it?
If he just decides to go for it and not do a small test?
I was talking about the test itself because that's what a lot of people like to do just to see if it works. But the test itself, it's not applied as if it is the full procedure, where they are trying to be, they are trying to match your stubble, as it were. Because that's what they're trying to do.
So what you're saying is, if he's going to test, if he's going to go for it, he's got to go for the full Monty, or not do it at all.
No, I'm saying to be aware that the test itself may wind up compromising the future, if they decide to move forward and really try out. So I think that the best thing to do is,
that's an interesting
if you're going
point.
to do a test,
Now I understand you. Now you're speaking English. I get it.
Well, I'm glad you understand.
Yeah.
No, the whole thing is, if you're going to do the test, shave your fucking head and do the test. Don't try to shortcut it. Like, you can't have your cake and eat it too. I don't give a shit what anyone is trying. Like, if
you know
it's
what?
S&P,
I'm going to say something right now. Yeah, that's not a bad. That's really, now that Joe has explained himself, I actually think he may be right about this. So I'm going to take that back.
For a shortcut.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't a shortcut. I just thought that, you know what? He doesn't want to fuck himself up. Let's see how it takes in his scar tissue. But what you're saying makes sense because, they really do have to match it up exactly to what the hair follicles look like. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that's if it actually keeps and holds its shape. Because what no one tells you as a consumer is that scar tissue is not skin tissue. It's completely different. It's much more porous. There's not this consistency of texture, and down on the cellular level, it's much more inconsistent and just haphazard as far as when you look at skin tissue. So what happens is sometimes it may take just fine, but then spread out and become this splotch that you're stuck with. There's the possibility of a confluence. So those 50 dots that you have as a test might turn out into what looks like someone messed with you in your sleep with a Sharpie pen, and you can't do anything about it. You gotta have it removed by laser, or it might. And this is actually a blessing. It might disappear completely in less than 2 weeks. I've seen that happen. I've seen that happen on skin tissue.
That's why I think, from what I've gathered, they do they do a very small amount. They see how it takes it, and then you do it's a 3-session process spread out. Yeah.
Oh,
well, I have to say that I don't do this a lot.
I see someone in the YouTube comment on Call 21 has said that he did it for his scar, and he said that
he did. Yeah, I actually recommended the technician for him because I know her work, and she is actually legitimately one of the best on the planet. Her name is Caitlin James, and she's amazing.
He said that.
I love her work. Yeah, she's really good. She's really good. There's only 3, maybe 4 on the planet that I think are worth recommending, and she's one of them.
Okay.
But look, the bottom line is this: if you're dealing with scar tissue that you want to camouflage so that you can have a shorter haircut, S&P is not the way forward. I think that legitimately, I think an FUE surgery into the scar is more of a viable alternative because it's real hair. It's real hair, and you don't have to worry. Like here's another thing to understand. All right.
Yeah.
Say you get this great job of camouflage on your scalp, on your scar, and you decide you want to do a buzz cut.
Yeah.
Okay. What happens when that buzz cut grows out? Well, you still have this gap where there's no hair. When people look at you from the profile, there's zero blending. They just see that there's this kind of this step of no hair above and below.
It's like my bald spot.
Plenty of hair above and below the
Like
scar
my
tissue.
bald
And
spot.
there's like this bald spot. Yeah. A bald spot with little dots in it.
Yeah. I get what you're saying. So you kind of have to.
It's not
if you're gonna
perfect.
do it, So if you do it, you kind of
need
have
to
to
keep
commit.
it. Yeah, you definitely got to commit.
Yeah.
It is an actual commitment. Like if you're going to do the buzz look, you gotta shave it every day, or you gotta trim it every day to a specific length.
Right.
That it looks best.
Yeah, but I mean,
Because
it's not like a face tattoo commitment. It's kind of just like, all right, if you don't want it to look a little off, then you got to shave it
there
close
is that,
every day.
yeah. But if you're going through
Yeah.
the trouble of having the procedure done, then you got to commit to a regular clipper routine. But then back to the options for your scar, a properly performed FUE of either scalp grafts or even beard grafts, if they match your scalp hair close enough. That's more of a do it and forget it type of scenario because they grow. You have to cut them just like the rest of your hair. It won't be perfect. It never is.
Yeah. Right.
But you have more freedom with that. You do have more freedom with that. And
You just bummed him out, though, by the way. He sounds so bummed at this point.
No, you didn't bum me out.
I'm just not
I've
into
been
the
doing-
S&P for the scars like that. It can work great.
Yeah.
And you can even actually use S&P as a follow-up to the surgery to kind of enhance it a little bit.
Yeah.
So
No, I
it's
hear what you're
kind
saying.
of like the best of both worlds.
Yeah. No, I kind of told myself I'm done with the. I did 2 FUTs, and I just don't know if I want to. Because if I was going to do another one, I would probably just want to.
Dude,
I'm gonna go
Tillman
through the hassle.
he just sucked the air out of the room with that one.
The truth hurts, buddy.
Yeah.
The truth hurts.
No. Yeah. No, I know. I mean, no matter what you do, you're going to get mixed.
Here's what I've seen. I have seen where it's not. If someone wants to shave it really close, I have seen pretty decent coverage with SMP. But if you look closely, it's going to be like, all right, something was done.
For the scar.
Yeah.
For the scar.
For the scar.
Yeah.
I see guys like, and I don't know this for sure about Joe Rogan, but it appears to me like he may have had some work done on his scar. And there are certain angles when he turns around where I see it might be darker than his current situation, where he's probably pretty gray right now. So, but I don't know for sure. But I mean, maybe.
But I think Rogan, he does like a wet shave. Like he's a clean shaved bald. He doesn't even have the stubbles really,
Right. But sometimes you'll see, like when he grows his beard out, and there are days where he might not have shaved his head.
Right.
That it's a little whiter, it's a little grayer. And that line is slightly darkened. Now, it could just be the way that it is. I have seen his scar in person. We're not friends. I don't know the guy, but I've seen him in my neighborhood. I saw him in Woodland Hills. I saw him at Burbank Airport. I saw him at right before the pandemic at this restaurant. I was like literally 15 feet away from him. I decided not to bug him because it would have ruined his dinner. Would have totally made him uncomfortable. I'd be like, hey, it's Spence, the hair guy. Remember me? I didn't want to do that. But, the scar looks significantly less visible than it was at one point.
Right.
And I don't think he got FUT and FUE into the scar, which I did suggest at one point. This is like, I'm talking about years ago on MySpace. So that's how long ago. So, plenty of guys get it done. And as long as you realize that it could get
it's not
fucked
going
up.
to be I realize that it can't be. So my take on it is I'm going to be. I have enough hair on top to where it's still worth it for me to stay on like finasteride and stuff. I mean, I could send you. I don't know if there's a way to email you guys. I could show you. You get your opinion, but
I don't really want to give you my opinion.
Yeah.
No. Joe takes pictures.
I was just thinking if I just went with it, and I was like, oh God, this sucks. I can just grow it right back out to where I'm at now, and it's just like one of those, just a waste of money that
you're in a good position, where that's possible, as long as you don't think that the color is going to eventually bleed through your hair. Right now, your hair is probably not gray, but if for some reason that color sticks around for many decades, which I doubt, it's possible when you do have white hair or gray hair that you're going to have like this line of darkness or whatever hair color you have underneath your hair. So that's always a possibility. And then you'd have to get something else done. But I think your basic philosophy, your logic going into this, being a realist, I don't personally think it's necessarily a bad idea to take a shot given your circumstances.
Okay.
Joe may think differently.
Don't come back here crying to me. That's all I gotta say.
Well, I guess there's really only three options, right? You do the S&P, you do the FUE, or you do nothing. There's no other choice.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
All right, brother. Well, I hope we were able to help you to some degree. I know this was confusing because we have contradictory viewpoints.
No. I mean, that's anything. You get different opinions, different. That's conversation. I like it.
Yeah. All right, brother.
I mean, you either do wrong or you do right. It's up to you. So.
Exactly.
All right, brother.
No pressure, man.
Right,
we're all counting on you.
Good luck.
Later.
All right. Take it
care.
easy. 888-659-3727 is the toll-free number. Let's see who this is. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Alex calling from San Diego.
Alex from San Diego.
Up,
How
Alex?
are you, brother?
Hey, how are you guys?
We're pretty good. I'm pretty good, at least.
I'm fantastic.
Yeah. I hope you're staying safe up there, Spencer.
Well, I'm doing a show. If all of a sudden I run out or I start coughing, you know there's a problem.
Let's hope not.
Yeah.
Anyways, I wanted to talk about, Spencer, I saw one of your Instagram reels today, which I like to see, and you were talking about basically some of the disadvantages of FUE, being one of them being that the risk of moving non-DHT resistant follicles is higher with FUE versus FUT. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's almost
100%.
100% of larger FUE cases, and basically even some smaller FUE cases, will move hair outside of what is known as the traditional safe zone. Essentially, the theory of donor dominance was thrown out the window with the escalation and the attitude that, you know what, we're not going to do FUT anymore. We're not going to have FUE as an ancillary procedure. We're going to make this the main procedure, promote it as scarless, and this is what it's going to be.
And in order to get the same number of grafts that we can get with FUT, we have to go really far forward. We have to go really high up towards the parietal humps. We have to go really low down above the ears and the nape of the neck. And that's the only way we can get the same number of grafts as a big FUT surgery without it looking too moth-eaten.
And I'll let you speak. I'll let you finish your thought. But if you're reading, I think if I remember in the comments, there was some surgeon from somewhere. I don't know where he's from, who's claiming, well, basically that's, you're talking about ancient techniques. Like this is some new guy in the field. And, with today's FUE, 99% of the hair, whatever he claimed, will continue to grow for a lifetime or whatever. I forgot what the claim was. And I was just like, brother. I know this is probably what you're being taught by whoever sold you a device or whatever so-called leader is now shifted gears and is just promoting pure FUE so that he can be written up in the textbooks. But that goes against the reality of physiology and hair transplant surgery and why hair transplants work. Anyway, go ahead, finish your thought.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, that's really important. All of those thoughts. And I guess my main question is because so many doctors now, that's the focus. Even the most, quote unquote, the best doctors in the world doing this.
Yeah.
FUE really seems to be the focus. And so as a consumer, it kind of, that disparity, it raises a couple eyebrows on my part where I'm thinking, okay, if I get an FUE procedure in even some of the best hands out there, should I expect that a lot of that is going to miniaturize at some point? And should I just be prepared for that and go, well, I had my fun and now it just kind of looks like shit? Like, is that...
You should expect that to be a possibility. If here's the thing. There was a time where it was always a smart idea to be on medication once it was available because it allowed you to maintain your native hair for longer periods of time, and that kept the hair transplant looking really good. We also know that as people progress to very high levels of hair loss, or if they get older and start to deal with a more aged alopecia, that even hair that's moved from the safe zone, in quotes, can miniaturize as well over time. But it's less likely to miniaturize, for it could last a lifetime. But back in the day, you can have a hair transplant, not take medication if you were a really good candidate and you had the right family history, and maintain that transplant for a very, very long time. That is no longer the case. Anyone who has a hair transplant today really should be on medication. Now, if you do well on medication, and if you have a large session FUE, it is possible to maintain all those grafts for decades. That's a possibility. But you also have to keep in your mind, based on your genetics, how strong your genetics are, that the medication may not hold up to the less DHT-resistant hair. So today's hair transplants, in my opinion, are far more temporary than transplants done even 15 years ago as a whole.
That's crazy.
Now, the best doctors in the world, the only reason they gravitated to FUE is not because it's a better procedure. It's because this is the only field of medicine and different aspects of cosmetic surgery where the consumer creates the demand for the medicine, for the surgery. It's like if you were getting cardiac surgery or whatever, kidney surgery, whatever kind of surgery you needed, the consumer is not going to be able to dictate how this surgeon performs surgery. It's just not the way it works. But in this field, that's the reality of the game. So even the holdouts, the guys that were saying, you know what, we do really well with FUT. We're going to incorporate FUE into our procedure, into our practice as an ancillary procedure because it can really change people's lives, and for the right candidate. Even those guys, the holdouts, eventually had to cross over to all FUE, and then all of a sudden they're like, well, now we realize that FUE is just as good as FUT in our hands. Some guys over up by you, Joe, that do that.
Yeah, I've heard that before.
Yeah.
Shocking, isn't it?
Yeah. For years, they were like, there's no way. And,
You know what? Now that we have no choice but to do this procedure,
yeah,
we feel it's better.
We feel it's better. Yeah.
We feel it's better than anything that we've ever done before.
With that said, I'm guilty as far as I introduced FUE to North America and to Europe back in, 1999. But in my wildest dreams, I never could have imagined that this beautiful, elegant, nuanced ancillary procedure would have turned into what it's turned into today.
Yeah. Wow.
So,
man, that's wild. I
There
mean,
you go.
do you think? Yeah.
how's my hair, by the way?
Looking pretty
Hey, both of your
badass.
hair.
Thank you.
Hair's looking great today, fellas.
Thank you. So go ahead.
Thank you.
Do you think that there are doctors that are really good at managing the safe zone in terms of FUE.
There are.
Mm-hmm.
But they're also very limited compared to doing an FUT.
Right. Yeah.
So
And-
let's say you have, and Joe could speak to this, not only out of experience, but he's actually worked in a clinic, several clinics, 2 clinics at least. Joe, on average head, not talking about a guy with a huge noggin like yours or a pinhead like mine, but the average head. You don't have a big head. I'm just kidding. How many viable grafts do you think you can get via FUT?
Over the life of the transplant career?
Yeah.
Well, I used to tell patients that if you have average donor density, average donor laxity, you can expect roughly, what was the number? Roughly in the range of 8,000 grafts, maybe 8,500 grafts.
And those 8,500 grafts.
And that's if it's performed properly by a really competent, everything has to be really good across the board.
Yeah.
The donor density, the donor laxity, the doctor, the team, everything lining up.
I would say most
maybe
professionals, I would say most people would say that you're good for 6,500, and if you're everything, all stars are aligned, up to 9,000, 8,500, something like that. And that's rare, I would say. 9,000 is rare. 6,500 for sure.
That's a great, it's a great point, but, and I've thought about, I used to think about this a lot. It really depends on who's doing the surgery, even if they're really good at what they do, because how many surgeons do we know that are excellent at what they do, but they don't do more than like 2,000 grafts in a session, or they won't do more than it really does depend on the clinic.
That's true.
And how they justify going into the donor zone over and over. And
also how they taper over, how they taper and go and willing to go into the closer to the temporal points,
exactly,
things of that nature.
Yeah, how wide of a strip they're comfortable taking. Like there are a lot of factors that go into it. So, and actually now that you mention it, my original answer needs to be modified because I remember what I used to say. I used to say that 6,500 to 8,500 grafts is what you can expect in the right hands. So we're both right.
Oh, I know. I just like to correct you publicly. Now, but those are all essentially, and I'm not going to say they're all DHT resistant because that doesn't actually exist 100%. But they're the least DHT affected grafts on your head. These are the hairs that you see on these 75-year-old totally bald guys that are still growing, Mm-hmm. So you want to be able to remove the hair from that, to transplant your hair. So you can't do that with any FUE. You just can't do it. It doesn't. So maybe you could get, I don't know, Joe, what do you think? A total of 35% of those viable grafts via FUE in total? Without making it look depleted.
Well, when you talk to doctors that understand the idea of taking grafts from as much of from as wide of an area as possible in the donor area, most of them will say that they're aiming for about a 30 to 40% extraction number from each square centimeter. So some of them will map it out. And they will get an average of the number of grafts in different regions of the donor area because the donor area isn't consistent as far as the number of grafts from one area to the next. It does vary. So they'll shoot for, we'll say, a 35% extraction ratio from any given area based on the number of grafts that are there because they feel like that's safe enough to where it won't lead to that depleted look. Now, there is this idea of the 50% rule where you can lose up to 50% of your hair before you even notice that you're thinning. And I have never prescribed that number, because there's so many variables involved with that. Because if you have really dark hair and fair skin, that number is going to be much lower. If you have a lower contrast of hair color to scalp color, then that number could actually be higher than 50% before you realize. It all depends on variables that aren't discussed, and that number has been thrown around way too much. And then since FUE's explosion in popularity, some smart people decided, and I say that mockingly, that the 50% rule applies to the donor area. I don't believe that at all. In some cases it can. But when you see these cases of 10,000 and 11,000 and 12,000 grafts, those patients have exceedingly high donor densities to be able to pull that off with any hope of there not being any sort of visual depletion of the aesthetic with regards to density. So, like, I've met patients where I'm blown away with just how their donor area looks like a beaver pelt. It's so dense. And those people can obviously get a lot more grafts than the average patient via FUT or FUE. So, there's a saying, all things being equal, nothing's equal when it comes to this. Everyone's different.
And I think that's a point that no one fully understands. It's not a point that people see online. People think that, this is being advertised like a rhinoplasty or a genioplasty or, whatever these, kind of, not that those are one-size-fits-all surgeries, but they're much more consistent in nature, even though everybody has different physiology. You're not trying to hit a moving target. And, it's just, they're a lot different, but this cosmetic surgery is being promoted just like all the rest. And this is not like all the rest.
And the danger of that, and I'm going to name some names here. You got Dr. Zarev, you got Dr. Patella down in Brazil. That's all they do is promote these 10 and 13,000 graft cases.
I don't want to talk about it. Yeah, go ahead.
And that is fundamentally changing the expectations and the reality that patients are expecting for their own cases. Well, why can't you do 10,000 grafts? We got this guy down here. We got this guy over. Yeah. Because that's not normal. That's why. That's not the average patient. You are not walking into a clinic, as a Norwood 7 and having legitimately 10,000 grafts that can be safe. I mean, we can extract every single head on your scalp if you want. Sure, we can do 12,000 grafts. You'll have 5 left in your donor area.
I will give these guys credit as, they are excellent mechanics. They're both young guys. They're excellent mechanics. I will say that. So they are able to do things that other surgeons in this field are incapable of doing based on their willingness to make it happen and their willingness to work the hours that they work to try to make it happen. And, they have the strength.
Willpower.
Yeah, the willpower, the strength, the youth, and the fact that they want to set themselves apart from the rest. So mechanically, they are able to make the results look really good, and initially at least create donor areas and recipient areas that look natural and undepleted for the right patient. But they're not showing you the patients that they can't perform these types of surgery on. And it doesn't matter what type of AI you have or what type of devices you're using as far as measurements. Those are helpful for sure, especially when you want to ensure that you're not moving miniaturized hairs. And, these are helpful devices. But the truth is, in the end, what's miniaturizing today may be not miniaturizing today, could be miniaturizing in a year.
Yeah.
So, and the more hairs that you move, the greater chance that that's going to happen. And if you speak to any doctor, we had a doctor talk about this on the air once, I think, but a well-known physician, or this is a patient actually, went to a well-known physician. The physician traveled to New York from Europe, had a consultation with him like 2 years prior to the time he had the second consultation. the initial consultation, he was told one number of grafts that could be moved successfully. And then the second consultation, just 2 years later, and the guy was on medication, essentially only half the initial, from what I remember, half the initial estimate was given based on his progression. So if he would have had that surgery 2 years prior, he may have lost half those grafts. That's a reality that no one wants to tell you about. Now, we tell you about this. It's not in my best interest. I have an organization of hair transplant surgeons. I'm sure when they hear this, they don't love it. But they also understand that we're not here to sell surgery. They commit to being a part of the IHRS and to allow their patients, they want their patients to be informed and to know what they're getting into. It's easier for them. Like if a guy like you knows what they're getting into, and then in 5 years, your hair transplant diminishes, you're not going to be surprised. You're not going to be bitching at this doctor because you knew exactly what the possibilities were. And that's really the information we're trying to spread. Doesn't mean not to have a hair transplant if you're a good candidate. You just have to know that this is something that's going to have to be maintained for the rest of your life. And part of that maintenance is going to be medical therapy, drug therapy.
Yeah. Wow. Sage wisdom.
Yeah, that's my soapbox. I'm going to get off my soapbox. If you're a candidate and you want to have surgery, you think it's going to benefit you, and you go to the right clinic, they're going to do the right thing for you. But just understand they're working within certain parameters, and these parameters have changed since FUE has now become the main procedure in hair transplant surgery.
Yeah, good to know. And I'm looking at about $2,500 to sort of build a new hairline.
Okay.
And so that's kind of where I'm at. Don't want to touch the crown right now. So
and how old are you?
If I do it, 35.
Okay. I mean, you're a good age, and if you are a good candidate, your frontal lobe is completely formed, and you're thinking straight, and you're asking the right questions, and I mean, if your transplant lasts you till you're 45, that's a very important part of your life. Those are great years,
Yeah.
So,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I wish you the best of luck. And you don't need to be disturbed about the reality. It's good that you know the reality because you don't want to be one of these poor guys who get fucked.
Yeah, and at the very least, I know that I won't have some sort of rug pull feeling.
Right.
If anything.
But I also don't want
really
you to go into it anticipating that you're going to be fucked up in the end either, because there are ways to mitigate the miniaturization, and especially if you're only having small procedures. I mean, a lot of that hair you have moved initially could last you for decades.
Yeah. Well, and that would be huge, of course.
So, all right, brother. Well, listen, best of luck. Thanks for the call. We didn't want to. I'm sorry if we turned it into a lecture, but we just wanted to get you all the information.
No, that was awesome. I really appreciate it.
All right, man.
Thanks,
Take
guys.
care. Bye-bye.
All right, buddy. See
Bye.
We talk so much. These guys just like we knock them out. I feel like they're falling asleep.
I know. By the way, there's someone in the chat room that apparently is asking lots of questions. Everyone's telling him to call in. I think he should.
Well, now the phone lines are open.
Is there someone on the line right now?
There's someone on the line. There's someone on the line, but we have a line open, so he's free to call in.
Okay.
We'll take a call. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this, and where are you calling from?
Hello.
Hello.
Is this Spencer?
It is, yes.
I can't believe I actually got through.
I can't believe it either. Who's this?
This is Rez. I'm in the Bay Area.
Oh, this is the guy. Yeah.
Oh, hey, man. What's happening?
Yeah, I was on hold the entire time that I was talking to the guys in chat. I honestly didn't think I was going to get through, but I thank you guys.
Oh,
You're miracles. You're welcome. Glad you got through.
I read your first book, Spencer, and it was about 2000. I remember reading it.
Wow.
And it changed my life. At the time, I was losing my hair. I had a battle with an illness called ulcerative colitis before then, and had a major surgery for it. and I think it pretty much accelerated a lot of my hair growth, hair loss.
Okay.
Because I believe it's an immune issue with the body. So I'm not convinced that the immune issue didn't accelerate the growth. Matter of fact, the only thing that grew pretty much all my hair back was a product called cyclosporin.
Okay.
I don't know if you've heard of that.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I could get on that now to grow it back. That wouldn't be wise. But they do have topicals. But I remember in your book, there was a doctor. In the back of your book, you had a list of a lot of doctors back then, and Dr. Rassman was a big part of one of the doctors that you were talking about at the time.
Yeah.
Which was great because he was cutting edge at the time. But there was another doctor that I remember reading about that always stuck in my head for some reason because I remember his infomercials. And that was a doctor by the name of Dr. Robert Michael Elliott.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I always thought...
I don't think... Now, was Elliott in the book or was True in the book?
Honestly, I believe Dr. Elliott was in the book as well.
I may have put...
under Elliott and True.
We may have put Elliott and True. Just to list them. But I think it was Dr. True. I don't know. It's so long ago. But yeah, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, okay. I don't...
Because Elliott, for a while, I mean, that was a questionable thing, you know. I mean, he did apply to the IHS through Dr. True. Dr. True gave him the thumbs up. But then, you know, to be honest, it was kind of like a roller coaster. You know, I wasn't 100% comfortable, and then we decided to part ways. I don't remember putting him in the book, because that was pre-IHS anyway. But yeah, go ahead.
Right. I don't know what you thought about him as a doctor. I mean, always you see the pictures, the before and afters, and you think, oh, well, this guy does the best hairline. He did a lot of celebrity cases. One of them being David Spade, who I thought had a great hairline. Spade always struck me as a guy that had a good hairline. And
now, how did you know that he did David Spade? Did he tell you that he did David Spade?
How do you know he did David Spade? Yeah.
So interesting story is after I had a procedure done with Dr. Elliott, I went to work for him as a patient consultant.
Okay.
In his San Francisco office and then the Newport Beach office. And so I was kind of privy to the people that had procedures.
So you obviously liked his work. Otherwise, you wouldn't have worked for him.
From the pictures that I saw, I liked his work. But keep in mind, I was also kind of a novice, I think, in terms of what I thought should be good and what shouldn't be good. I think that was primarily, you know, what the issue was. I mean, to me, it looked good, you know, but back then it wasn't like a plethora of pictures and, you know, YouTube videos.
It was a different world back then, brother.
Yeah, it's a different world.
That's why the bald truth back then, I mean, it's like, you tell somebody you wrote a book on hair loss 30 years ago, I mean, they're like, it's like ancient history now.
What's a book?
Oh, it was unprecedented. Yeah, no, it was unprecedented. I remember reading about saw palmetto and green tea extract and stinging nettle.
Now everyone's selling it.
Now everyone's selling it, you know. I even went on the 5 milligram Proscar because you had said that it blocks more DHT. I at that point I basically became like a eunuch. I had zero sex drive at all at that point.
Interesting.
So I backed off. 1 milligram it was enough. But when I was working for Dr. Elliott, I had, you know, seen some of the cases. Kevin Costner. I mean, I probably shouldn't name drop, but
I like to hear it. It's interesting.
I'm actually going to interrupt and say, Rez, as a professional in the industry, you shouldn't be, unless it's public knowledge, you shouldn't be telling anyone about celebrities or anyone that's had surgery.
But he's not in the industry anymore. You're ruining the show.
No, I'm sorry. I don't dig that. It's you don't carry it with you later on and just say, well, I don't work in the industry anymore, and now I can tell the secrets.
We just got David Spade and Kevin Costner.
I know. I'm calling quits on there.
All right.
No more.
Fair enough, Joe.
Who else?
Well,
Okay.
I'll hold
wait, Joe, I can't. Joe,
Spencer's like, who else?
Joe, I can't hear you. Joe?
They all had great procedures. I mean, to be honest with you, but I'll leave it at that. I'll leave it at that, Joe. I respect that. No, I apologize. So
no, it's okay. Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah.
Carry on.
So I had 2 procedures with Dr. Elliott. First one being in, I think, 2008, which there was about 2,400, 2,500 FUT.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second one I had was about 2011, which was about 2,200 hairs.
Hairs or grafts?
Or, excuse me, grafts.
Okay.
Yeah. So over 4,000, total of over 4,000, 4,800, 4,700. And initially, I thought it looked good. I mean, the hairline looks okay. There aren't any weird looking grafts or anything misaligned. But again, because my limited experience, perhaps Joe or you guys could see my picture and say, "Oh my God, it looks incredibly unnatural." But the problem isn't that. The problem is that I have almost no hair. It looks incredibly thin all around.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand that, everybody can have different experiences and based on their hair and texture and how dense the back of the hair is. I always thought I had decent density. I think it was like a 2.1 or 2.2 in the back. But I look bald. At the time, Dr. Elliott was telling people to get off of finasteride because he was worried about the side effects. And it was post-finasteride syndrome. Everybody was worried about that.
Mm-hmm.
So he had told everybody to get off. I think I stayed on finasteride more than I actually stayed off of it. There was a time where I got off of it for maybe a few months here and there.
Mm-hmm.
But
and and you're off of it now too, aren't you?
No, I'm not off of it now. I went back on it.
Good.
I went back on it about 6 months ago, and about 2 years ago, I even went on because Dr. Elliott recommended. I went on oral minoxidil, and I started with 2.5 milligrams, and now I'm up to 5. Basically, at this point, I'm throwing the entire kitchen sink at it just to save what I have. I'm on copper peptides. I use emu oil every night.
Let me ask you this question. So your initial results with Dr. Elliott, you thought that they looked reasonable, and you saw a lot of his patients. You worked for him, and you saw the work that he was providing people with. So I'm assuming, because you were willing to work with him and then you were willing to lay down and have surgery with him, that you thought that, okay, this is a good choice. Were you informed that you could continue to progress and you're just going to end up having grafts?
No.
Yeah. I mean, and you had no idea, like when you were consulting other patients, you weren't telling them the reality of hair transplant surgery?
No, I mean, because back then everything was like, oh, this is permanent. Everything you move, it's going to be permanent. It's in the safe zone.
That explains Kevin Costner.
Huh? Yeah, well,
that
he's
explains
progressed.
Kevin Costner's long-term result.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The only guy that
Oh,
that looks
wow.
good to me is Spade, but
Well, to be fair, at the time, things
Yeah.
like donor dominance, the theory of donor dominance is really based on larger grafts. So there's a lot more tissue, a lot more buffering for the larger grafts, and based on
That's a good way to put it.
yeah, based on I know, thank you. No, based on Orenreich's findings and his years in practice, those grafts did seem to be permanent. Great. But it wasn't like he was following patients for 50 years. As things progressed, the grafts got smaller and smaller. Now, Elliott was still using slightly larger grafts, but there is, over time, especially with FUE, there's a realization that there may be, especially in very aggressive hair loss sufferers, something called recipient site dominance, where there's a signaling from the recipient site to actually potentially diminish the robustness or the ability for the grafts that were considered to be safe to grow as well as they would if they stayed in the back of the head. Usually now it's thought that the more diminutive grafts or the more denuded grafts are the ones that are more susceptible. But back in 1998, 2000, when I was writing The Bald Truth, none of this information was even available. I mean, it didn't exist. If you took hair from the safe zone, it was safe. But what we did know is that people will continue to progress if they weren't on medication, especially. So, it does surprise me that kind of working in the industry that, I mean, did you not, and again, I'm sorry that you're dealing with this, it sucks, but did you not see anybody like coming in and saying, oh, I seem to look worse now, or things have progressed?
I remember one guy came in who had a procedure done, and his grafts just didn't grow at all.
Yeah.
That's what I remember. There was one guy. And I thought it was a little strange, and Dr. Elliott met with the patient, and I don't remember how they handled the situation. But I remember there was one guy that came in. I do remember this. There were never like patients coming in that had like these. Joe, you made a video the other day about a doctor at Alvan. Is it Alvani or one of the
Armani? Their new clinic in Salt Lake City. Dr. Craig Barton.
Yes. I don't remember anybody ever coming in and just being like a Norwood 4 or 5 and just looking like, whoa, what the hell? And it's like, some of these results now that I see are just, it seems like the lighting doesn't even matter. They just have these amazing results, But but I don't remember anybody ever coming in and looking like that, like, whoa. It was always like, oh, he was bald, but now he has some hair. It almost looks like a little bit of diffuse thinning, but nothing like a full head of hair like the way Zarav gets, or some of these other doctors that I've seen.
Well, I mean, back in your day, they were moving less grafts.
Yeah.
In general, and if the physicians are telling patients not to stay on finasteride, they're progressing. Let's just put it this way: I had a very interesting relationship with Elliott that he may or may not have expressed to you when you were working with him. So let's focus on you. So your initial 2 procedures, how long were you able to live with a decent head of hair after the procedures?
Honestly, it seemed like a very short period of time, a couple of years. I mean, I only remember it looking decent for a couple of years.
Okay.
And then I just kind of remember me starting to shave my head almost the way Joe Rogan did, because it seemed like, first of all, you couldn't really get the really good stuff on eBay anymore. And it seemed like minoxidil wasn't working all that well. But I still continued to use everything. But I remember just always shaving my head because I just was never like, oh, I look okay.
Right.
It was always like, you look like crap. You don't look good.
Right. And
So
so,
like Joe looks great with his hair.
yeah.
He's got his hair, so he grows it out.
Thank you.
And then it seemed like the sides of. Then the other thing I started to notice is the bottom of your hair where it starts to curl, and you go to the barber and they'll cut it. It's the hair of the back of your neck.
The nape of your head, yeah.
neck.
Your nape hair.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. It almost seemed like that went up a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, that's called retrograde alopecia. Now, are you saying that went up after your procedure, like directly, like right after, or you started to have less hair there over time?
Both. Like I don't remember it being like that before my procedure, but maybe I never noticed. I remember always having a good head of hair at the nape of my neck, and I started to realize, there was like what you call this retrograde alopecia, where the sides started getting really thin, and then the actual bottom of the hair where it meets the neck went up.
Yeah.
It was,
Whether
and I always thought that was because of the surgery.
Yeah, I mean, I have recently been dealing with some retrograde over the last few years. I kind of held on to that area for like forever, and that's in my case reality of age, and just been dealing with male pattern baldness for so many years. So it's not uncommon, and if you had aggressive hair loss to begin with, it's pretty common. Now, could you have had your nape moved slightly from the surgery? It's possible. That does happen if there's a lot of tension and if the strips are pretty significant. But it's not going to cause you to lose hair in the nape. The nape could be made higher in general. Go ahead, Joe.
Well, I think that there.
You can lose hair from the surgery, from the strip itself.
And it also depends on how tight the closure is, because if the closure from the strip was too tight, then that can create
blood supply
almost like a pressure cell in that area that's pushing blood or reducing blood flow overall, which in and of itself can thin out the hair. The hair can become diffused almost, simply because there's not enough blood flow for all the hairs to compete for.
Mm-hmm.
Is that maybe what happened? Like did it thin out kind of like a diffused thinning, or it literally moved up?
Both. Both. Like,
okay.
There's a little bit of that diffusing below the scar.
Okay.
Yeah, like, so if you see the line.
And would you, sorry, real quick, Rez, would you say that the donor scar, is that if you feel the back of your scalp and you feel that that horizontal bone, that protrusion, which is called the nuptial ridge, is your donor scar below that bony protrusion?
Yes.
There you go. Yeah. That's when the nape can actually be moved up. And that's when, it would be more effective in that, or it would affect the nape of the neck more,
yeah,
because it wasn't taken on top of, like, right on or just slightly above that nuptial ridge, because that nuptial ridge is a separation point. It literally separates your scalp from your neck, and anything below that ridge is your neck. So there's more of a direct relationship between the surgery and what happens in that area of the nape.
And surprisingly, you see a lot of guys, especially guys who've shaved their heads, and you see their scars when they have the deep smiley face scar. It always surprises me how deep some of these docs and low some of these guys go beyond that ridge, which is kind of like a no-no, at least in today's world.
Why do they do it like that? It's just doctor is misinformed, or they.
No, first of all, it was a different time, and the information that was provided to these physicians in the textbook that you saw, that you read, sometimes it was just easier for physicians to make that cut and to make that closure, or they were taught that hair maybe, or they saw in your case, maybe the hair was a little more dense in that area, so they decided to go down there. Joe, you've seen thousands of strips.
I've seen all kinds, and I think that, it's a great question that you just asked, Rez, and I think that especially back then, even today, because if you were to ask the average hair transplant doctor about the mere basics of FUT, they look at you like you're speaking Greek because they have no clue. So, but when you look back when FUT was basically the only game in town, there were still a shocking number of physicians that lacked simple situational awareness when it came to the physiology of the specific region that they were operating in and day out. They didn't understand that the tension when you're removing a strip is variable from 1 centimeter to the next, and you have to be constantly checking the tension, and you have to be constantly adjusting the width of the strip. That's why a lot of the better clinics would take out the strip in sections. They wouldn't take out just one long continuous strip. They would take it out in 3, 4, even sometimes 5 sections along the same incision line, so that they could compensate for the tension that was guaranteed to be there, or the variability in the tension that was guaranteed to be there. A lot of scars that were taken below the nuptial ridge that were more prone for stretch back, as a matter of fact. And those are the ones that were more challenging for repair cases. Just so many disappointments with regards to the basic approach to a proper FUT surgery back when it was the only thing going.
And I'm sure you understand back then, since you worked in the industry, it was a much smaller industry. There's really literally a handful of physicians, especially in the U.S., who are performing even, follicular unit transplantation. The choices were extremely limited, and it was kind of like an old boys network. They all kind of shared information however they wanted to share it. And some of the really great guys didn't want to share the pearls of wisdom, as they call it in this field. I just sounded like Trump when I said that. Pearls of wisdom with their colleagues, and the little nuances like Joe just shared with you. So,
So what happens is where the scar is, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Spencer.
No, it's okay, man.
Where the scar is, below that, because it's a diffuse thinning, Joe, you believe it's because the blood flow cannot get to the hairs, and so it's almost choking off the rest
More
of the
or less.
hairs because it's below
maybe
below that ridge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe that could be a reason why. I'm not saying it is as an absolute, but it could be. Yeah. The nuptial ridge is it's an important differentiator between the areas above that line for survivability, for aesthetics, for the way that it heals. It does create a differential that is impactful for the final result, for sure.
Seems that way.
All right, so what's the situation? You've obviously you were in touch. How long did you work for Elliot?
About a year.
Oh, that's it. Okay, so
and then, he was starting to get out of the field. He had issues with his hands, like peripheral neuropathy. So he was starting to do less and less cases, and pretty much now ever since COVID, he's not in the field anymore. Poor guy, actually, his health isn't doing all that well right now. But it's what happens. He got sick after COVID. But I was going to say, did you guys want to see my pictures while I'm on the phone with you? I could email them. I don't know if that's something you'd be interested in.
It's really difficult to get those up on the screen or anything like that. So You can send them to us if you want. Yeah. But it's look. I mean, pictures or not, you've got an issue, and I think that just so you know, you're not the only one. I've dealt with a lot of cases that actually sound similar to yours. So, I think the biggest problem that you're dealing with is that you weren't trained properly, well, the training wasn't there because the clinic culture that you came from did not believe in the merits of finasteride for long-term prevention. You're dealing with the issue of transplants are permanent, and in many cases they are, but you weren't taught that your native hair is going to continue to fall out after surgery. And so you weren't on a consistent regimen of effective preventative treatments, and that could be part of the reason why you are where you are now. There's definitely a genetic component. You might be someone that is genetically predispositioned for diffuse patterned alopecia or unpatterned alopecia. This is all sight unseen. But the bottom line is there are a lot of cases out there where someone was deemed a really good candidate. There are no indicators of any sort of adverse issues after the fact that may or may not, very well may not be due to the surgery itself. It could just be an ongoing progression of, the genetic profile manifesting over time, where you do have diffused alopecia, where you do have, an ongoing situation of loss that may or may not be prevented by medication. Medication isn't a guarantee. I've dealt with a lot of people where they had no side effects, but they also had no benefits from medication. So it could be any number of issues, but at the very least, you are in a position now where, to use your words, you're throwing the kitchen sink at it. There are some things where I would suggest maybe it's a little bit of overkill, like the copper peptide approach. That's a very old concept from over 20 years ago that my personal opinion, it's a waste of money. Yeah. I know it's not cheap either. I know it's expensive. Right. That's a waste of money. I would cut that out. It's not doing anything pro or con for you except draining your wallet. I would stay the course with finasteride. I would do everything in my power to make sure I'm not using generic finasteride, because while it can work fine, it can also work not fine due to an inconsistency in quality. Some generics, you just don't know where it's coming from. You don't know what their protocols are. You don't know if they actually give a shit about maintaining the highest quality possible and maintaining standards. Spencer will agree with me. We're brand whores on that. It's Merck finasteride or Organon finasteride. It's a new company that was spun off from Merck, but it's not generic. It's the real deal. So I would recommend 5 milligram Proscar and stick with that. Quarter it, half it, whatever dosage you take. You can extract it from that 5 milligram tablet with a pill cutter. And that way, you're getting the real deal. So there's no guesswork with that. If you're going to be taking the oral minoxidil, stick with it, and be consistent. Don't stop taking it. Don't take a 2-year break. Don't take a 6-month break. All that screws up any progress or any sort of maintenance that you would have had, and you're resetting the clock. Every time you start back on it, you're starting from scratch. And you don't want to do that. If you want to keep your hair, if you want the chance of improving your hair, you have to have the best baseline possible, and that's only possible with medication consistently.
So I went to my doctor, and I convinced him to switch me to dutasteride. So I've been on that for about a week, just because I figured, well, maybe it'll help better.
How do you feel?
And
okay.
I feel okay so far on the dutasteride. It's only been a few days. I don't really notice any difference. I was kind of scared to take it at first just because of the super long half-life. But I just figured, well, I can always stop it if the side effects aren't any good. And then as far as the minoxidil goes, I went with this company that formulates minoxidil, and they put tretinoin in there and a little bit of hydrocortisone.
Yeah.
And it's an 8% minoxidil, and it's muesli in Salt Lake in Utah.
Sure. And they sell a lot of products to women as well. I mean, they've been around for a long time. Well, long, when I say a long time, a couple of years, but very strong presence.
About $30 a month.
Yeah.
Well, I figured maybe the 8% might. So I'm actually using oral and topical.
Yeah.
Maybe it has absolutely no bearing on the results. I don't really notice a drop in my blood pressure.
How old are you now?
I don't know if it's 50. I just turned 50 this year.
Okay. Well, happy birthday.
Thank you.
So look, man, I mean, you're not old. Jesus, I'm going to be 60. You are it's not an uncommon story. Let's put it this way, especially at the time you had hair transplant surgery. So, like you said, you worked for this guy. You saw some of the results that came in. You saw the celebrities that he worked on. And, you were still willing to go under the knife because you obviously thought that the results were reasonable, at least. But, like I say now, I've been saying it for a very long time. I mean, it's a crapshoot. You really have to be solid. So if you had in 2008, so you were like in your early 30s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, my early 30s.
Yeah.
Do you think at this point, it's hard to say, would you say that my issue could have been, is it doctor error, or is it just what happened because of my genetics, or...
It's really impossible to say. The only possible error that I see is that he went under the occipital ridge.
Yeah. It seems like none of the grafts grew in my crown area that I had put in, which is really bizarre.
That's yeah. I mean, but that happens.
Possible.
But if the grafts grew elsewhere, then were there two different technicians placing the grafts? Did he place the grafts? What was the situation?
There were technicians. The second time, both times there were technicians placing the grafts.
Right.
I don't remember any of the technicians just being kind of, people that didn't do good work. But again,
right.
I was limited to being on the other side of the sale, so to speak, at that time.
Yeah.
And perhaps I wanted to see everything. Elliot is an incredibly he's a charming guy. I mean, very, very well-spoken and charming. So there's always a lot of that goes involved in choosing a doctor. Sometimes you meet a guy and he's not confident, and it's like, well, I don't know if this guy can do that. Elliot always seemed like a guy that was, incredibly confident, and it's like this guy. You think, oh, this guy's the best at what he does,
Yeah.
And I remember, Spence, you were always kind of my hero in this field, and I would ask Dr. Elliott. I go, I remember I told Dr. Elliott, I said, Dr. Elliott, I remember reading your name in Spencer's book, and I think he said something. He almost made it seem like it was a sore subject, like maybe you didn't like him or something. But he was always changing the subject really quick. He's like, "Oh, I don't want to talk about that."
Yeah, well, there were some issues, and there was a significant complaint that I had to deal with. That I think, if I remember correctly, and I can't give it an exact situation, but it was a young guy. The work I felt inappropriate, and I made it my point to help this guy adjudicate the situation so that at very least he can get his money back so that he can get repair surgery. And that's kind of when things fell apart. We were, he was part of my organization for a relatively short period of time. So I think, and I have to look at the book, but I kind of think that it was Robert True that was at the time. I don't recommend doctors. I did it in the book, but Robert True at the time, and then it was from Elliott and True, and then eventually Dr. Elliott applied to the IHRS. He was given the thumbs up from one of our members, which is one of the things that we look for is basically a sponsorship from an accepted member. Took a look at his work, and it was fine. Spoke to his patients. It was, very like mid-range IHRS. Let's put it this way. Not the best, but definitely good enough. And then I had this one disappointing experience, and there weren't a lot of complaints, but this one complaint was, I felt, significant enough to kind of make a big deal out of it.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why he was uncomfortable speaking about me.
Yeah. And he didn't say anything bad, but I was like, Spencer's the best. He's got the best books, and you should join his team and advertise with him. And it was always, he's like, well, I don't know, I don't know if I want to do all that.
Yeah, it's interesting. So the fact that you said that, he's probably already not. We probably already had the issue because you didn't know there was any connection. So that's why I was curious. If there's no connection when you were working with him, then I don't remember actually listing him by name except for the company because he was partners with True in the book back in the day. And that's maybe where you saw the name.
Yeah, and it's like I went back and he's like, well, how long has he been doing these transplants? Like 40, 50 years, and he had these advertisements that he's transplanted, more hairs than, any other doctor that's ever done it. And, it's like, oh, okay. Well, I don't know if any of it's true or whether you can.
He was around for a long time. All these guys, all these old timers, man. I mean, they were the beginnings of this field. They were doing plugs back in the day. Yeah. I remember, this is, at least in New York, Robert True is retired now. I just remember they were using at one point, if you were to go into their office and poke your head in to see a patient, it's very possible it would have looked like this guy had nails in his head. They were using something called dilators. Where they would kind of, and I don't know if they used it in your day.
Dilator, yeah, I remember. He told me about that.
Yeah. And it was, it was mortifying, actually, when you think about it. It's like
those were being used as recently as I think like 2005 in some clinics. There's some old school holdouts that were still using those.
Yeah. So essentially, it was once they create the recipient site, they wanted to keep that site open so that it would be easy for the technicians to place the grafts. And I don't think it did much damage in general. I mean, it could depending on how they were placed. Is there a certain weight? It could cause some tissue damage. In general, probably not. But it was still seemingly barbaric. So this is where these guys came from. And if you look at the textbooks, these guys are still they're looked at as luminaries in the industry. It's wild to me.
It's crazy.
But back in 1998, what I had to work with is I had to choose. I had to guide people in the best direction that was available. And frankly, when I wrote The Bald Truth, there were only 11 physicians who were able to make that book.
Yeah, there weren't a lot of doctors to really choose from.
Well, there were a few hundred for sure. I could have listed them all, and I could have, when I started the IHRS, everyone wanted to pay to be, membership to be part of the organization, but I had to keep it limited.
And the interesting thing about Rassman is he got a lot of notoriety, but it seemed like, as far as his time on tissue, he didn't do a ton of procedures. Is that right?
No, he did early on in his career, but as things progressed, he was already, by the time I met him, he was already he's probably younger than me, but he seemed older. He was in his late 50s, and he had like Bob Bernstein with him. I know that Shapiro had trained there and worked with him for a while. John Cole, from what I remember. So he was probably delegating more of the surgeries to his associates and just kind of running the business. But I can't tell you. I mean, I do. He definitely had a lot of time on tissue, for sure. I mean, you may have heard something different from from Elliot, but all these guys are backstabbing each other. I mean, it's a terrible industry, brother. Especially back in the day, it was so dirty.
Oh my God.
I mean, you were there for a year.
Well,
you know some of it.
Yeah. These guys love to party, by the way.
Oh.
Some of
them were degenerates.
Yes. Big time.
Yeah.
I'll never forget seeing one of the godmothers of the industry so drunk she was on the floor of an elevator in front of her colleagues because she all but passed out, slobbering drunk.
Yeah, I've seen technicians throwing up. I've seen some. I've been drunk. I went to one conference, but I had already spoken, and I was actually on my way out. And this was my last night. And it was a small conference, and I decided to get loaded. But I never did that again. I got loaded with Joe, but not. It wasn't really. It was kind of like almost private when we were in Vegas. But
I know it was 4 a.m. No one else could handle it.
Yeah. But I had chosen, like, you don't want to drink with these guys. And I would just I would watch them kind of like as a fly on the wall and think to myself, not only are these just people, a lot of these guys are like relatively socially inept. This is their time when they're, especially at these conferences, they're kind of like their time to shine and have camaraderie. And they don't necessarily know how to handle the situation or their booze and the shit that comes out of their mouth. It's frightening. These are doctors.
1,000%. It almost seems like some of them are a little bit on that autistic spectrum.
That's so funny that you say that.
That is funny. Wow.
I have never met so many people.
He did work in the industry.
Yeah, I've never met so many people on the spectrum as when I go to an ISHRS conference.
Yeah. I mean, you would almost have to be, right, to just, like that Zaraf. Have you seen Zaraf's, when he actually does a procedure and he prints everything out and, maps it out on someone's head, the actual procedure. I mean, the guy's the most technical doctor I've ever seen. Maybe even one of the best doctors I've ever seen. But no, you definitely have to be a little bit on that, autistic musk.
Yeah, I don't think I think he's just obsessive and he's just like a machine. I don't sense the spectrum thing with Zaref. I mean, I think he's an incredible mechanic. I just don't think that he's been in the game long enough to see enough long-term results come through his door from those types of procedures.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I believe the damage that's going to Joe, you got to go, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Guys, I have some calls on the line. I'll just speak in a second. I have some calls on the line. If you want guys to hold on, I'll switch over to Instagram, but it's going to take me about 5 minutes or so. So anyone who's holding on right now, I'll take your call on Instagram and see how that goes. Go ahead.
Okay.
Now you can finish.
You want me to finish?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, because I have a pretty good relationship with my doctor, and I told you about the ulcerative colitis that I have, which is an immune issue.
Right.
There was a part of me that often thought whether or not my own immune system isn't attacking my follicles or maybe even attacked the transplanted hairs that I had. So
100%.
I had,
Could be.
yeah. You know, it's just kind of the way my mind works with medicine. I kind of see. So I asked the doctor, and he's going to ask the dermatologist whether a JAK inhibitor might help.
Well, that's interesting.
You know,
That'd be
I don't know.
fantastic if it can. Yeah.
Yeah.
If that's the entire issue, and that grows my hair back, because as I said, the cyclosporin back when I had my colitis, I had like Elvis hair, and I was like a class of 5 when I went into the hospital. Like,
Well, that's
got
a
all this
pretty
medicine.
significant. That's a pretty significant sign that you may be dealing with an autoimmune issue besides your colitis.
Yeah. I'd love to know more. I'd love to get an update on this as you learn more. Can you call us back and when you got more info to share on that?
Absolutely, I will.
All right, brother. Listen,
Yeah.
I appreciate.
Fantastic.
I appreciate. I'm sorry that you have to go through what you've gone through all these years. I appreciate
Yeah.
hearing from someone who kind of knows me from back in the day, and actually read that book, and also someone who's been in the industry, which is interesting, especially the old school industry.
Yeah.
Well, I used to
right
be
on.
a car salesman, and so these guys wanted to hire me.
Oh, yeah, that's basically what you were selling back in the day.
That's
Especially given the
interesting.
fact that
That's
you told me
interesting.
the way that you presented things, like there's so much you didn't know, and you were selling hair transplants.
I was one of the best, too, to be honest with you.
These poor guys.
Poor guy, but I thought they were doing good work. I mean, I hope to God that I didn't ruin anybody's life.
Well, here's the thing.
So,
You know, you didn't mean to, and it wasn't about them doing good work or not. It was whether or not they understood the reality of what they were getting involved in, which we try to educate people on. Most salespeople aren't given that information, and they're there to make the sale. So you can't blame yourself.
thank you.
All right, brother. Listen, good luck. Let us know how it goes.
I'll call you guys. Yeah.
Yeah, call us
I'll let
back.
you guys
Please do.
Take care.
Thanks, Rose.
Scott.
Take care.
Thanks, Rose. All right, Joe, you froze. So let's call a night. I will go. Guys who are holding on, you can call in if you want to catch me on Instagram. That's at Spencer Kobren. I'll try to set up a live right now. It'll take me a few minutes, though. Joe, good show.
Yeah. Good show. I think it's time to get a new computer.
You might need one. Joe Tillman,
Yeah.
his YouTube channel, youtube.com/hair transplant mentor. You can follow him at Real Joe Tillman, right?
That's right.
Real Joe Tillman.
No, that's the old one. Joe Tillman Official, Instagram.
Joe Tillman Official at Instagram. You
Jesus.
should just change it to
Yes.
Joe Tillman. Get it hooked up on as Joe Tillman.
I might do that. We'll see.
And obviously follow me on Instagram at Spencer Kobren. I'm going to go live if you guys want to cross over, however many of you want to cross over from Joe's page to my Instagram or on Instagram. If you're following me, you'll see that I pop up live and I'll take some questions and take some calls. All right.
All right.
Talk to you later. Joe, take it
Spencer,
easy. Good
good
show.
night.
Good night.
All right. Good night,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry for any inconvenience you may have been put to prior to the programme, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. And if you could now leave by the exits at the rear, that'd be splendid. Thank you. Good night.